Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Textual Study of the Qur'an. In our previous session, we had started off with Surah Araf, which is the seventh Surah of the Qur'an, and it's the second Surah of the second chapter of the Qur'an. In this Surah, we know that the previous Surah, its counterpart, which was the sixth Surah, Surah Anam, through historical references and the tales of the prophets of God. And the previous Surah, which was of course revealed in the time of Inzar-e-Am, which is the enhanced phase of warning. The Quraysh were warned of their behavior and they were told of the consequences they would suffer if they would not accept the truth, which is self-evident to them. And in this particular surah, this fact is substantiated through the anecdotes of the previous messengers of God, through which they were told that if they follow their footsteps, then their fate is not going to be any different. Today, the section that we are going to study starts off with the famous anecdote or tale between Adam and Eve, which was something that took place earlier on after mankind was created or initiated, to be more precise, and how they were actually warned that what are the main areas from which they need to protect themselves and secure themselves from tests and trials. So we begin with the surah with verse 19 today. وَيَا آدَمُ اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةَ فَكُلَا مِنْ حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَٰذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ فَتَكُونَا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. We said to Adam, O Adam, dwell with your wife in this orchard and eat in it from wherever you want. But both of you do not go near this tree, otherwise you both will become unjust. So, Ustaz Ghamidi says that this probably refers to an orchard of this world, where Adam and Eve were lodged, and it is erroneous to believe that it was paradise, or as is generally thought of, in which they were kept before they were sent to this world. Obviously, the word Jannah or Al-Jannah, the word is used for an orchard, and because at times it is used with the article Alif Lam, and that too with a specific connotation, and it also refers to the orchard of paradise, but not unless there are concomitant indications. So we also know that paradise is something that is yet to be made. The Quran says explicitly that the stuff we have over and above us is going to one day change into new heavens and earth, and from that new stuff will be created hell and paradise. So it's a common misconception that Adam and Eve were in paradise before coming to this earth. As I said, Ustaz Ghamidi says that it was an orchard found in this very world. Someplace in this very world. And when it is said that both of you do not go near this tree, so it is clear from Surah Taha that this tree is called Shajaratul Khuld, which means the tree of immortality, and hence it is used metaphorically. It cannot be used in the literal sense. The meaning evident from the expression Shajaratul Khuld and the effects which manifest themselves after eating it, as we mentioned ahead, and we will be discussing this, both indicate that it refers to the tree of procreation, consuming the fruit of which lets the generations of mankind sustain and continue in this world. So this tree of procreation through which mankind is able to sustain itself is the tree that is implied here. It's not a physical tree, it's not something that you can think about, and people have made various guesses whether this tree was an olive tree or a fig tree, or a tree, as the Torah says, of good and evil that could give the awareness of good and evil. The Quran here in Surah Araf and in Surah Taha explicitly says that this is a tree which is metaphorical in the sense because it is called the tree of eternity, Shajaratul Khuld. And of course, the second thing which is evident is that once they ate the fruit of this tree, the private parts of Adam and Eve became evident to them, and they started to cover them with fig leaves. So it is one of the greatest weapons of Satan through which it will attack mankind, is the message that they were told not to procreate, not to come in sexual contact with each other, but they ended up doing so. And this was the Almighty's way to tell us that the greatest onslaught of Satan would be through sex and lust, and we have to remain secure from this. So also we know that God has regarded the husband and wife to be an apparel for one another and has permitted them to taste the fruit of this tree while wearing this apparel. But Satan always induces them to eat this tree without this apparel, and effectively this is what is meant. So As you will see, the very next verse describes what had happened. So فوسوس لهما الشيطان ليبدي لهما ما وري عنهما من سوآتهما وقال ما نهاكما ربكما عن هذه الشجرة إلا أن تكونا ملكين أو تكونا من الخالدين. Then Satan lured them so as to open to them what had been hidden to them from their private parts. He said to them, your Lord has only stopped you from this tree, lest you become angels, or that you may acquire immortality. See, clearly we can know that what is being said here is cannot be a literal tree, something which is meant literally. Satan had actually lured Adam and Eve by informing them of what they would lose by not eating the fruit, and by being overwhelmed by the extraordinary state which gets the better of a person when he eats this fruit. They were caught in the web woven by Satan and ate the forbidden fruit. And reflection shows that there is some truth in the claim of Satan that it is by eating it that mankind sustains in this world, sustains itself in this world. And it is evident from this that in spite of the prostration of the angels before him, Adam regarded them to be of higher status than him. Also, he knew that the life that would be given was not eternal. They would be given a shorter span. So that is why Satan came to them and said that if you consume the fruit of this tree, you'll become like angels, takuna malakain, and as the previous verse says, aw takuna min al-khalidin, or you'll live forever. So just as angels have long periods of life, or they are, they're always there. There's no death for them. So clearly, that is what Satan wanted. That if you taste the fruit of this tree, of course, you'll sustain your species, and this would make you eternal. And they were stopped from doing this, but of course they were not able to do this. And then it was said to them, قَالَ رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. So before that actually happened, let me just go on to the previous verse, which I have seemed to have missed in my recitation. So the words actually are وَقَاسَمْهُمَا إِنِّي لَكُمَا لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. He swore to them repeatedly and said, I am your true well-wisher. I am your true well-wisher, which is of course a methodology through which he wanted them to be led away by his temptations. So he swore to them repeatedly and said, I am your true well-wisher. قَاسَمَهُمَا إِنِّي لَكُمَا لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. And it is through this area, or through this particular tactic which Satan gets hold of humankind. And we will know that the way that he said that when you do this, then this is how you will be. You'll behave as if you are angels. You'll have an eternal life. And I am your well-wisher. Inni lakuma laminan nasihin. فدلاهما بغرور فلما ذاق الشجرة بدت لهما سوآتهما وطفقا يخصفان عليهما من ورق الجنة وناداهما ربهما ألم أنهاكما عن تلكما الشجرة وأقول لكما إن الشيطان لكما عدو مبين. By deceiving them in this way, he gradually enticed both of them. Then when they tasted the fruit of the tree, their private parts became evident to them, and they began covering themselves with the leaves of that orchard. At that time the Lord called them, did I not stop you from this tree, and not told you that Satan is your open enemy? Clearly you can see that the words used are badat lahuma sawatuhuma, which means that their private parts became evident to them. In other words, it became evident to them that the private parts were not merely meant to relieve calls of nature, but concealed in them was another thing which only becomes known once its fruits are tasted. And we know as a result that once this act happens, as soon as it happened, in fact, in the case of Adam and Eve, they realized and they began covering themselves with the leaves of that orchard. So it is evident from this incident that the feeling of modesty and bashfulness with regard to sexual organs is innately found in human nature. Otherwise, this would not have happened. This feeling is neither known through external sources nor engendered artificially through the evolvement of society and culture. It is something that human beings know by birth. It is something which God has ingrained in them. As soon as one is aware of one's sexuality, it becomes evident automatically. So human beings want to hide these limbs, which become a means of sexual pleasure. And you also know, as this is evident from this verse, that had I and not told you that Satan is your open enemy. So this is something which the Almighty had said, that remember, he is your open enemy, he'll try to lure you and you have to resist his calls. But unfortunately, Adam and Eve could not. In fact, Adam took the initiative, and of course Eve complied, and then of course they repented, and the words of this repentance are also then cited forthwith. قَالَا رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَّمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Both cried out, Lord, we have been unjust to our souls. If you now do not forgive us and not have mercy on us, we shall definitely be among the losers. So this is the best example of the repentance which is mentioned in Surah Nisa, in which it is said that as soon as a person realizes that he has done something wrong, and he does that wrong, commits that evil by being overwhelmed with emotions, and as soon as those emotions die away, he or she immediately realizes the sin that has been perpetrated. So if a person right after this realization forgives or asks for God's forgiveness, in fact, and repents, then the Almighty says that it is incumbent upon him to forgive that person. And of course, this is what happened here. But then it is another thing which we also know from the Quran, and that is قَالِ اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. He said, get down from here, you are enemies of one another, and you will have to stay in the earth until an appointed time and live there. قَالَ فِيهَا تَحْيَوْنَ وَفِيهَا تَمُوتُونَ وَمِنْهَا تُخْرَجُونَ. He said, which is of course God said, you will live and die in it and also be raised up from it. The word ihbitu has given this misconception as if people were somewhere up in the heavens, and the word ihbitu means to get down. And so people thought that, well, they were in paradise, and when they were told to get down, they actually descended on earth. Whereas we know that the word ihbitu actually is when it is meant to get down. I mean, it is used in this meaning. The actual connotation is that people who are traveling, they are on their transports and their camels and horses, and then they are told to get down. Then the word uses ihbitu, which means that disembark and go and spread out. So it's not that they were somewhere in the heavens, and ihbitu actually meant to ask them to get down from heavens to the earth. No, they were already on earth, and they were told to just spread out, because the original plan of God was that he is going to create human beings, and he's going to create them and give them this trial and test and see who succeeds in this trial and test. But as we know, that before this actually happened, the Almighty put Adam and Eve through this test. And the reason that we just discussed earlier on was that so that they are told that the greatest onslaught of trial and test that they will be faced, and of course their next generations, would be through sex and sexual organs and through lust, and hence they have to remain on guard, because this is something which is going to absolutely decimate one another as far as morality is concerned. قَالَ اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. So get down from here, you are enemies of one another, and you will have to stay in the earth until an appointed time and live there. So clearly Satan is their enemy, and they are enemies of Satan. And the natural relationship between human beings and Satan is of animosity, and this should always remain clear. And when it is said that you will die and live, you will live and die in it and also be raised up from it, so it tells us that the incident of Adam and Satan ends here. And there are certain aspects that we have to understand, and which I would now like to actually briefly summarize before you, because Ustaz Ghamidi has summed up the lessons in as far as this incident is concerned. So the first lesson that he has put forth is that the greatest sin in the view of God is rebelliousness and arrogance. A person who perpetrates these can be doomed forever. And you know what? It was Satan who perpetrated it, because he refused to prostrate before Adam, and angels were superior to Adam with regard to their creation, but they regarded the directive of God to be more superior, and they submitted to it without any hesitation, and this was the right attitude. On the other hand, Satan did not. So the second point is that Satan wants human beings to reach the same fate as he has reached. It is to achieve this objective that he had asked the Almighty to give him respite. His primary target is belief in monotheism. He knows that there is no place for idolaters in God's paradise. He wants to prove that the being before whom he was directed to prostrate is not even worthy of worshipping the Almighty with a true comprehension of his person and attributes. The third lesson which Ustad Ghamidi has put forth is that the greatest weakness of human beings is their sexual instinct. Satan knows that the easiest way to lure them is to convince them to break the restrictions God has imposed them on sex and sexual relations. So he lured Adam and Eve through this very methodology. And Satan is always ready to play any trick or weave any kind of web of deception to achieve his objective. He is able to lure people to evil ways in the very manner he had lured Adam by enticing him and telling him that he will become immortal. And this is the weakest point of defense that he has spotted in his targets since the very first day. The fourth lesson in this regard, pointed out by Ustaz, is that Satan as well as Adam and Eve made mistakes. Yet there is a difference between the two mistakes. When Satan was told about his fault, he became arrogant, audacious, and turned away from God's worship and took to rebelliousness. But on the other hand, Adam and Eve did not do this. When they realized their mistake, they turned to God and were ashamed of what they did and asked for his forgiveness by seeking refuge in his mercy. So Satan has been eternally expelled from God's presence while the doors of paradise are still open for Adam and Eve because of the attitude they had adopted. So whenever they want, they can begin their journey towards it by traveling with the provisions of virtue, piety, and repentance. So this is how the whole anecdote of Adam, Eve, and Satan is to be understood. And as we go along through the text of the Quran, we'll see it is described in a very detailed way in Surah Taha, the 20th Surah, and obviously at other instances also. But Surah Araf, the one we're just studying, and Surah Taha present a very detailed account. Ya Bani Adam, قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا ولباس التقوى ذلك خير ذلك من آيات الله لعلهم يذكرون. Children of Adam, we have sent down attire for you that hides your private parts also and is also an embellishment for you, and the attire of piety that is better than this. It is a sign from among the signs of God so that people may be reminded. So the incidents and events that occur in the life of a father are the strongest means of learning a lesson for the children. And that is why this story of Adam and Eve has been narrated to us with such eloquence. And that is why these words are actually addressed to the Quraysh. They are told, when it said Ya Bani Adam, it's not that the Quran is addressing all mankind, and this is a common misconception. We know that the addressees of this surah are Quraysh, and for them, when it is said, O mankind, or children of Adam, it's actually directed towards them. So the incidents and events that occur in the life of a father are the strongest means of learning a lesson for the children. So it's like reminding the Quraysh of what happened to their forefathers. This story is the story of the whole family. In the form of an indelible tradition, sincere children preserve the practice of friendship with the friends of the father and enmity with his foes. They preserve this etched in their minds and transmit it to later generations. So dearly held is this tradition amongst the Arabs that they do not even distinguish the good and evil in it. The enemy of the forefathers will be considered an enemy if this enemy had some convincing basis. So it is a matter of great sorrow if human beings forget this animosity of Satan and his progeny with their progenitor, and animosity which was entirely based on malice and jealousy, which was not concealed. It was not something hidden. It was fully exposed. It was fully evident. And it was something not specifically meant for Adam and Eve, but for every single child of Adam and Eve until the day of judgment. Also, the matter does not end on forgetting this fact. Such is the extent of this insolence, defiance, and wretchedness of the children that many among them have actually befriended this enemy and his associates. They regard them to be their confidants and well-wishers. At the bidding of Satan, they are leading themselves to ruin in precisely the same way he had led Adam and Eve astray. So that is why there is unmatched eloquence, according to stars, in this beautiful address of Ya Bani Adam. It's like it's an all-encompassing thing yet directed towards Quraysh. So when every honorable and sincere son of Adam leads these words of address and the reminders they sound, I mean, his sense of honor. He feels that there is appeal made to his sense of honor, and it is only the dishonorable and the insolent who do not indulge even. I mean, indulge in any. They're not. They do not budge even after this. After these words are spoken for them. And when the Quran says that we have sent down attire for you that hides your private parts, everything of the earth has been created at God's behest, and as such has in fact been sent down by Him. So that is why the word anzalna is used. It doesn't mean that it has landed from the heavens. In a similar way, we know that in Surah Hadid it is said, we sent down iron, anzalna al-hadid. So it's not that iron comes down from the heavens, it's that the word anzalna actually means that it is something which has been given by someone who is in the heavens, and He's God, of course. And the reason that it has been given is that your private parts also, and is also an embellishment for you, that it hides your private parts and it's also an embellishment. So the first of these is a need, and the second is completion of God's favor. Yes, we need to cover ourselves, but we can also embellish ourselves with the clothes, and that is completion of God's favor. And generally both these aspects are found in everything God has created. So the attire or the clothing hides a person's private parts, protects him from heat and cold, and is also a means of his adornment. It enhances his personality, grace, and elegance. But the Quran says one thing, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ, and the attire of piety, that is better than this. So what is meant here is that just as God has created things from which a person's external attire is made, in the same way He's inspired those facts in his soul with which his inner attire is made. This is the attire of piety found in our own selves, something that we have inside of us. For this purpose, God has ingrained in ourselves sense of worship, fear of God, of making Him displeased with us, and the feeling of modesty and chastity. This inner or internal attire is composed from these elements and is far above the outer one. In fact, it is when the outer attire is made from motives that spring from the inner attire that it makes human beings truly human and humane. And if the person whom God out of His grace adorns with this garment, who also looks actually truly graceful and majestic. So clearly we have to understand that this attire, this clothing that we have, it does not only fulfill our needs, it completes the favor of God. And as this verse ends on these words, it is a sign from among the signs of God, so that people may be reminded. So it is a sign. How is it a sign? Because they be reminded that a person's outer attire too should be in accordance with the inner one. So the inner one is piety. So the reminder is that this is a sign of God, that your outside attire should also boast of taqwa. The signs of God are found in the world outside of a human being, and that within him as well. It is this responsibility that he must seek guidance from all the time. The revelations of the Quran, the verses of the Quran, at many instances direct our attention to these very signs. Ya bani Adam, la yaftinannakum ash-shaytan kama akhraja abawaykum min al-jannah yanzi'u anhuma libasahuma liyuriyahuma sawatihima. Children of Adam, this should never happen, that Satan lures you the way he ousted your father and mother from that orchard in which God had made them dwell, by revealing their private parts to them, by making them take off this very attire. And then it is said, bear in mind, and let me first finish off the Arabic. It says, Innahu yarakum huwa wa qabiluhu min haythu la tarawnahum inna ja'alna shayateen awliya'a lillazina la yu'minun. Bear in mind that he and his accomplices see you from where you cannot see them. So in other words, clearly we are not able to see the jinn, or because Satan was amongst the jinn. So the Quran tells us that they can see us, but we cannot see them. In reality, we have made these devils the companions of those who do not believe. So we have to understand that as far as the Quran is concerned, that this reference, when we reveal our private parts, and the Quran actually says that it's something through which he takes off this very attire And this is actually a reference to the attire of piety mentioned earlier. So when it is said that Satan should not lure you away the way he lured your forefathers, Adam and Eve. So Satan actually wants to expose this aspect of their private parts which was concealed from them, the taqwa. He achieved this very purpose of his by having it taken off from them. This libas of taqwa, this attire of piety and taqwa, is something that was discarded. Now, the first thing in this regard is, what does Satan do? So this weapon of Satan is something that is even very effective today. So first, through latent and hidden suggestions, he deprives people of the attire of piety and fear which is found inside of us. It was this attire which the Almighty had relieved with the, this is something which the Almighty had always revealed with the outer attire. It was something that was in tandem. So the inner attire was piety and the outer attire was the clothes that we wear. So they were revealed in tandem. And its purpose was to grant him a high status. When the internal attire was stripped off, a person's modesty, which is the modesty and honor which a person has, the real motive for his outer attire no longer remains with him. So if you strip yourself off your inner attire, which is piety, then the outer attire becomes regardless of any purpose. It is then that the external attire becomes a burden for him. Lewdness induces a person to bear and expose his or her private parts because the inner attire is no longer with that person. And fashion sustains and supports this urge, and he produces such innovations, Satan produces such innovations in his attire that the children of Adam, in spite of wearing it, seems to go without it. They seem to not be wearing it. Its basic reason of covering the private parts is lost. After that, the only element left in clothing is embellishment. The purpose of that too is to expose the body as much as possible, and that too in an enticing way. And gradually human intellect is overwhelmed, and nudity is then dubbed as culture, and covering the body is considered to be an old-fashioned act which exudes abhorrence. Educated people then come forward to the scene and present the philosophy in the light of history that nudity is actually real human nature. Clothing has become in vogue because of restrictions of customs and etiquette. It is at this stage, viewers, that shamelessness overcomes people and the whole society is poisoned with lust and licentiousness. So, a very apt reminder from the Qur'an that this is what Satan is going to do. He is going to strip you of your inner piety, your inner attire, so that your outer attire knows no purpose for itself. And again, what the thing which is said here is that Satan and his companions can see you, but we cannot see them. So, why is this mentioned here? So, this is a reference to the cunning, wily, and conniving nature of Satan and his accomplices actually. Because such is the multiplicity and variety of their garbs and the places of their onslaughts that people can neither recognize them in all these apparels, nor can they remain in God regarding all these attacks. The army of Satan boasts both of jinn and mankind, remember? And they will sit in every ambush. They will lie in every ambush in order to waylay mankind. They will regard them to be friends and well-wishers. They will come close to them as if they are best friends. And people will think that they are paving the way for development and advancement, whereas they will be after mercilessly decimating them. They will also try to spin a web of charm around them to make them get caught in it. So, in short, human beings must always realize that it is Satan with whom they have this eternal enmity and animosity, and they must not take it lightly. And when the Quran says that Inna ja'alna shayatina awliya, that we have made these devils the companions of those who do not believe, this again is a very important reality that we might at times don't remember. And what is that? That devils become the companions of people who take to evil ways, who are engrossed in licentiousness and lust. Basically, these are temptations of Satan to inveigle not only those who do not have faith in God and His guidance, but also people who are weak in their faith. So it is evident that Satan is not successful in luring those who strongly adhere to faith and guidance. In other words, it is only, as you can see, the Quran says, "Awliya lillazina la yu'minun." He can only befriend people who do not have strong faith or who do not believe. In other words, However, if they have this belief, if they have this strong connection with God, then Satan cannot in any way entice them. And the Quran has made it evident. لَيْسَ لَهُ سُلْطَانٌ عَلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, at one place in Surah Nahl, that they do not have any authority on people who are truly devoted to God. So once again, we have to understand that the machinations of Satan, the way he works, his methodology is nothing but to lure people, to entice them. He does not forcibly take people away and lead them to the path of evil. No, he just suggests, he just gives his advice, and the rest is done by the people themselves. وَإِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً قَالُوا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهَا آبَاءَنَا وَاللَّهُ أَمَرَنَا بِهَا قُلْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَأْمُرُ الْفَحْشَاءَ قُلْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَأْمُرُ بِالْفَحْشَاءِ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ قُلْ أَمَرَ رَبِّي بِالْقِسْطِ وَأَقِيمُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ الدِّينَ كَمَا بَدَأَكُمْ تَعُودُونَ. It is precisely the purpose of this prophet that when those people of your nation do something vulgar, they say, "We found our forefathers on this way, and to this God has directed us." Tell them, God never directs people to indulge in vulgarity. Do you say such things that you do not know by imputing falsehood to God? Tell them, my Lord has directed me to fairness in every matter. He has asked you to face him near every mosque and call him by showing obedience to him only. You will return to him only. You will return to him only the way he initiated you. And then, of course, the words are Fariqan, Fariqan Huda, Fariqan Huda, wa Fariqan Haqqa alayhim al-dhalala, innahum ittakhazu shayateen awliya'a min dunillahi wa yahsabuna annahum muhtadun. He guided one faction. It believes in all these things, and another was led astray because leaving aside God, they made devils their companions and think that they are rightly guided. So, if you look on the first of these verses, that what did they do? They said that if we commit something which is lustful or licentious, as the word fahisha is used here, they would say that we have found our forefathers to be practicing it. And if we look at the succeeding verses, we will it actually refers to those vulgar acts that were done in the name of religion. It's not something, outside of religion. It was something done in the garb of religion. And such practices have remained very common in the places of worship of the idolaters and the abode habitats of the followers of religions that have been invented by Sufis and by mystics. They come into being through the evil doing of religious leaders and the custodians of graveyards. It is evident from historical narratives that one such religious innovation, which was in currency in Jahiliyyah, was circumambulating, which is doing tawaf of the house of God in a naked state without any clothes. And this is what they would do, and doing this. And this is a practice of religion. So the Quraysh were the custodian chiefs of the house of God, and they had put an edict according to which all Arabs who could not circumambulate it wearing their own clothes. This is what they did. So they would do tawaf by wearing clothes, but they would say that people who do not belong to their tribe, they cannot do the tawaf by wearing clothes. They could only do it either by borrowing clothes from people of the Quraysh. So this is one way. In other words, they said that it is essential that the garb and the attire of the Quraysh has to be worn. And if that is not something that is available to them, then they have to circumambulate the Kaaba or do the tawaf of the Kaaba while being naked. This is a custom that was found in Arab Jahiliyyah, and it is being referred to here. So in other words, the Quraysh thought that the clothes of others are a type of filth, that such an extraordinary ritual of worship could not be carried out while wearing them. They had to discard them. And God had to tell them, Kul amara Rabbi bil qist, that God does not, He never calls people to something which is fahsha. Inna Allah la yamuru bil fahsha. He does not do this. How can He say people should circumambulate the Kaaba while being naked? All his directives are based on his attributes and on the requisites of human nature. He simply cannot direct people to do something which is vulgar. So that is what the Prophet has been told to say to these people. And what is that? Amar Rabbi bil Qist. My Lord has directed me to fairness, which is the Prophet being told that my God has directed me to be fair. And what is fair and just can only be that which is in accordance with the attributes of God and the requisites of human nature, which is balanced and which fulfills the objective for which people have been created. The whole Sharia of God is based on this fairness and justice. And God himself is someone who adheres to these principles and has also declared that the purpose of revealing his books is actually to make people adhere to justice in matters of religion. And then, of course, when it is said, وَقِيمَ وُجُوهَكُمْ إِنَّ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ, that you must face him near every mosque and call him by showing obedience to him only. What does that mean? It is actually the foremost requisite of the justice and fairness which is just mentioned, that every mosque should specifically be meant for God's worship, and a believer too must turn his face towards God, the one and only, in every mosque and not towards anyone else. That is why it has been emphatically said, and it has been said that if you have to do this, then remember, if you commit anything else, do something else, the words are kama bada'akum ta'udun. You will return to him the way he made you, the way he initiated you. And this statement is a statement of further attestation of monotheism, which is, just as a person comes in this world alone, he will return to God alone. None of those whom people regard to be their intercessors will be with them. So, kama bada'akum ta'udun. Just as people came alone in this world, so shall they return. There will be no one to rescue them. There will be no one to help them. And that is how God says that God has made devils their companions and think that they are rightly guided. So fariqan hada wa fariqan haqqa alayhim al-dhalala innahum ittakhadhu shayatin awliya min dunillahi wa yahsabuna annahum muhtadun. That these devils are their companions and they think that these companions are going to guide them. This is not going to happen. It is something which is totally against it is totally against logic, that how can the devils guide them? They are just going to lead them to their own doom. So with this we come to the end of today's topic. Inshallah, we'll continue from here in our next session from verse 31 in fact. And now if you have any questions regarding the passage that we have studied, you may raise them.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem. What a brilliant session today, and the explanation was absolutely wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. If you have any questions at this time, please raise your hands so I can call on you. Yes, I see Shabana has a question. Shabana, go ahead, ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, जिस तरह सूरह बकरा में बनी इसराइल को अल्लाह ताला ने कहा है एहबितु मिस्रन, तो वो भी उनको जाने के लिए कहा है ना, कहीं ऊपर से तो ज़ाहिर है वो भी नहीं उतरने, तो ये इसी तरह यहाँ पर भी एहबितु.
Yes, it's the same word. So word ehbitu actually means disembark or spread out, and the word ehbitu or disembark, as I said, is used in reference to the fact that people will be riding on their conveyances, on their camels and their horses or their elephants, and so they would say, just go away or disembark from this place and go to that place. So in essence, it actually means to spread out. Just go out and populate whatever you are being told to populate.
Okay, thank you.
Asif Saab, please ask your question.
Yes, this is regarding verse 27. Ya bani Adam la yaftinannakum shaytanu kama akhraja abawaykum min al-jannah. يَنْزِعُ عَنْهُمَا لِبَاسَهُمَا لِيُرِيَهُمَا سَوْآتِهِمَا إِنَّهُمْ يَرَاكُمْ. So in this way, it is very much evident that the Creator is very much disturbed with this. With this happening, that is going to happen. That Adam is going to be asked to spread out from this Jannah where he was housed at that time. So in that case, had it been the scenario that Adam had not become succumbed to what Satan lured him to eat the forbidden fruit, and in that way definitely God Allah would not have asked him to spread out in this world, in this earth, and obviously there would have not been procreation in that way. Then how that trial and test?
So you see, I mean, I do get your point that how would this have happened had Adam and Eve not committed this act and they had not succumbed to Satan's lures. So remember, in order to understand the story of Adam and Eve, you have to gather all the instances in the Quran in which it is mentioned. The very first instances it is mentioned is in Surah Baqarah. And how is it mentioned? It says, Inni jailun fil ardi khalifa, which in other words means that even before the creation of Adam, even before he was created, God was speaking to his angels that I am going to create Adam on the earth and he's going to live there. So that was a plan, regardless of this test through which they were put. This test only was meant to make them realize that the greatest trial that they would face would be through sex and their sexual organs. That is all. Otherwise, God's decision to make Adam and have him and give him the authority to use his freedom of will is already found earlier on when he said, Inni jailun fil ardi khalifa. And that is why that is why the angels actually argued with God that if you're creating someone and giving him power and authority, and he's bound to misuse this power of an authority, and yasfikud dima, he'll end up bloodshed. He will spread bloodshed and disorder in the earth. And God said, Inni alimu ma la ta'lamun, that I know what you do not know. So you see, the scheme of God, if you look at it as is mentioned in Surah Baqarah, is that come what may, he was going to create Adam and he was going to make him populate the earth. This was just a prelude to that creation in which they were kept in a particular orchard for a temporary period of time. And it's not that when it is being said, ihbitu, that the anger is not directed towards Adam and Eve. It is actually directed towards Satan. So this, and of course to the warning that remember he is your biggest enemy. So don't think that he is going to come and lure you to something good, because when he came to Adam and Eve, remember what he said? He said that you will be given eternal life. And that is what lured them. So God says that these enticements of Satan, which might seem sweet to you, because if you're given eternal life, you'll be happy. Don't get entangled in them, because this is how he's going to operate. His modus operandi would be like this. So you see, this is like forewarning Adam and Eve what's going to happen if they succumb to Satan when they populate the earth as well. Otherwise, as I said earlier on, the scheme of God was that he was going to do this in any case.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Ammar, please ask your question.
Dr. Shehzad, my question regarding this passage is that I'm always confused about Ghamidi Saab's explanation or tafsir or his point of view on what the forbidden fruit was. Now, his explanation is that it was intercourse or sexual intercourse which was prohibited. But sir, my confusion in this is that obviously Adam and Eve were man and wife, and they were left in a garden without clothes. What else were they supposed to do? And also we are not told whether this stay of theirs in paradise or garden, for how long was it for? Was it time bound? Were they given sort of like some kind of a window that, okay, you have to abstain from sex for like 2 weeks or a month, and then you're okay? Because obviously when they were sent down to earth or sent outside the garden, they did have sex and they did have children. And so I find this a bit confusing, because obviously they have been given those sexual organs and they have a purpose to it. So then why would it be prohibited for them to indulge in that act? Is it possible, sir, this is my question, that it might have been related to sexual intercourse, but it might have been some kind of a sexual deviance, which we see in our cultures today, that there's a lot of sexually deviant acts as well that men and women indulge in.
That cannot be possible, because you see, the reaction or the consequence of this act was tafika yafsihani min warakil jannah, that they started to cover their private parts with the fig leaves or whichever leaves they found in the orchard. This actually tells us that they immediately were overcome with shame of being indulged in that sexual act. So first of all, we have to understand that yes, they were husband and wife, and until that time, it seems to us that the sexual urge in them had not appeared as it normally appears in grown-up people. And until that time, they were probably using these organs to relieve themselves from the calls of nature. And it does seem that when they had this initial sparks of sexual desire, it was when they were kept in that confined area and told not to go near each other. Otherwise, it seems that they were, had this opportunity to live with each other, but they did not have that urge appear in them. We know that the urge appears today in a human being in a particular age. It's not that it does so immediately. So it does seem that they had entered that age, but the urge had yet to appear. And it was at this time that they were kept together, so that if that urge appears and they are stopped for that from doing that, then the scheme of God was that he somehow wanted to tell Adam and Eve that, well, beware that this is the fruit that if you taste that fruit when you go out of this garden, then it is going to cause you the greatest of trials on earth. And that is what God had in his mind, it seems. And also, as far as this trial is concerned, the fact that your question also says that how much was the time that they were kept there. Again, this is, remember, it's not that God has given us all the details. We don't know whether it was 2 weeks or 1 week or 10 days. All we know was it was a time when their sexual desire was about to appear, and it could have been any small window of time, I would say. But as soon as that happened, God's scheme and plan was actually implemented. They came to realize what they were stopped from was something that God wanted to caution them from. So you see, it's not essential to go after the number of days or what happened after that. What is essential is the scheme of God was that he wanted to make them realize that you have to exercise caution. And it does seem that they were not able to do so because of the intense desire which when one develops in a person, he or she is not able to control themselves. So that is the very reason that is expressed here. And then, of course, the second important thing is that you cannot say that this tree was some physical tree. As has been interpreted by a vast majority of our interpreters, they would say that this tree is the fig tree. Some say it's an apple tree. The Torah says that it is the tree of good and evil. You get the awareness of good and evil if you eat the fruit of that tree. It cannot be that, because you see, every tree which is physical is not going to give you eternal life. Because the other enticement of Satan was that if you eat this, fatakuna malakain, you'll become angels. You'll live forever. So how does mankind live forever? By actually procreating and sustaining its generation. So it had to be something symbolic. And that symbolic thing, of course, is something that can be understood once we read it with this next part, which says that as soon as they ate the fruit of that tree, they started to cover themselves. So again, it cannot be something of a fig fruit or any other fruit. You would not cover your private parts because of that. So you see, these all these concomitant indications, as we call them, they point strongly towards the fact that it was the tree of procreation which was meant here.
Ahmad, do you have a follow-up question for this?
Naji, I think this is a good answer. Thank you.
Dr. Hussain, please ask your question.
Thank you, Ji. First of all, I think it was very insightful, interpretation of these verses. My question is related to Satan, Shehzad Sahab. But do you mean Satan literally? That Satan, the jinnis that we are, as Muslim, we believe that they are around us and they, sort of, mislead us with inspiration or this sort of things? Or is it because we got reference in the Quran that sometimes the jinnis or the jinnat, they also take the human form? So they take the human form to mislead us. So how can we, corroborate that when we are, for example, going to the astray or to the wrong path, are they really the jinnis, they are misleading us? Thank you.
So remember, as far as the source of leading us astray, we have two sources. One is, of course, external source, which is Satan or Iblis and his progeny, and the other is our own nafs, which the Quran tells us. So the sources are two. But as far as the mechanism of the first source is concerned, the Quran tells us in the last surah that these devils are found both among jinn kind and humankind, because allazi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas min al jinnati wan nas. All that they can do is they whisper evil suggestions in you, and these evil suggestions are, just implanted in your heart. And who does implant them? The Quran says min al jinnati wan nas. They are implanted by not only the people amongst the jinn or the jinn kind, but also by human beings. And by virtue of becoming accomplices to Satan, they also become his associates. So Satan's associates, Satan, remember, is the jinn who disobeyed God, and his name is Iblis in the Quran. So the rest of the jinn kind who follows him actually become his accomplices. Similarly, from among mankind, those who follow him become his accomplices. So Satan, Iblis, is the chief, and he has associates amongst jinn kind and amongst humankind. And whoever become his associates, they become shayateen, and that is why it is used in the plural also. But their only weapon is that they can whisper evil suggestions. They cannot forcibly make people go do evil. And that whispering or that enticement is something which is like a provocation. The next thing is something that is left to a human being. He or she can either control that provocation or succumb to it and do what those devils wanted us to do.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Asif Saab, please ask your question.
Yes, this is regarding verse 26, where it has been mentioned, قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ لِبَاسًا يُوَارِي سَوْآتِكُمْ وَرِيشًا. So here, regarding the wordings, يُوَارِي سَوْآتِكُمْ, it explains the purpose for it relates to libasa. But for the words warisha, I mean, is this the second object of the verb anzalna? If it is the second object or maf'ul of the word anzalna, in that case, this is something else than the words that has been mentioned in libasa, or it explains like the yuwari sa'atikum, that that God bestowed with libasa as a means of adornment as well. So what is implied? Whether it is the second object or it is something hard, libasa.
This is not a second object. It is a maf'ul of what we call illat or maf'ul lahu, which means that we have revealed to you the attire. And what is the purpose of that attire? One, to hide your private part, and it is also rish. The second purpose is that it is basically also something which is an embellishment. So the word anzalna does not take a second object. The first object, first grammatical object, is only libas. That is all. After that, the word of ta'leel, as we call it, it is something which is not found in words, but we know yuwari sawatikum tells us that this is the purpose of actually giving us a libas or attire, and the second purpose is rish. So basically, the grammatical object is libas, and that's it. The rest, of course, is something which is connected to the libas in the form of the cause of giving us that libas.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Bhatti Saab, please ask your question. I see that you have your hands raised.
Thank you, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, Allah Ta'ala जिसको फरमाता है कि
also, I mean, just excuse me, and also a second grammatical construction would be anzalna alaykum risha. So if you would like to go into more grammatical details, since you asked this question, let me also let you know that a second construction would be that he revealed to you the libas, which is an attire, and which is something which is meant for your, hiding your private parts, and he anzalna alaykum risha, and he revealed or he sent down to you risha, which means he sent down something that is meant as an adornment. So that is another possible grammatical construction. In that case, risha would be the first object of the word anzalna.
In that case, we will be considering anzalna. Once again, it's mahzuf for risha.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Bhatti Saab, you can ask your question now.
Sir, in Surah 2, Ayat 20, 21, where Allah says that once they did that act, then they were exposed to each other. So before they could not see, they could not see each other's private parts and the whole.
No. As I said before that, the private parts, of course, were there, but they were being used to relieve the calls of nature only. It was only that when they became intimate with one another and they had this attraction with one another, that they realized that there is another use of these private parts, and that is to obtain sexual pleasure. So, from the wording of the Quran, what becomes evident is that until that time, they did not have that sexual awareness. They just thought that their organs are meant to release themselves. And as I said, this is something that happens in our own lives also, because as children enter puberty, only then that they get to know what these organs are all about. For example, a 5-year-old child or a 6-year-old child would not know that there is any other reason for these organs other than relieving oneself. So just as this happens in human beings, it seems that it happened in their case also, that this desire for sexual intimacy did not arise amongst them until this time when they were kept together, and also forbidden from not doing it. Remember, when you are stopped from not doing something, you become more inquisitive and you become more reflective of the fact that is there any other thing implied, or is there any other currency that is being said which I am not understanding. So you see, by stopping them from not doing it, and maybe because the time had become ripe for them to indulge in sexual act, it was precisely at this time that they came together, and God made this as a test for them, so that once they undergo it, they are able to realize, and God is able to tell them that your biggest trial and test as you go out in this earth and spread out, and your generations, they populate the earth, the biggest trial that will face would be through lust and through their sexual organs. And history bears witness that perhaps this is the greatest trial that human beings face. And not only history, I think human beings today also, they realize full well how provocative and how enticing the lures of Satan are vis-a-vis sexual organs.
So Satan, you say two things. Satan lured them to this, and their own sentiments or their own.
Yes. So you see, their own sentiments were on the verge of being appear. I mean, they were about to appear, and Satan provoked them. One, they were stopped by God, which might have raised their curiosity. Second, Satan said that you're being stopped from coming together and being intimate, and the reason that you're being stopped is that you'll become eternal. So, and if you are going to do this, then just as the angels have eternal life, you'll also have eternal life. So his enticements came from a different angle, but the purpose was to make them taste the fruit so that they could disobey God.
Understood.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. It's been a brilliant session today. I have no more raised hands at this time, so we can continue with the idiomatic translation.
So I'm just going to start off the literal and idiomatic translation. وَيَا آدَمُ اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةَ Wa and Ya, O Adam, uskun, inhabit, anta, you, wa zawjuka, and your wife, al Jannah, the garden or the orchard. So you and your wife inhabit the garden. Fakula, therefore both of you eat, min haisu, from wherever, shi'tuma, you both want to, wa and la, not, taqraba, go near, hazihi, this shajara, this tree, but do not go near this tree, fatakuna, otherwise you will, minas zalimin, among the oppressors, otherwise you'll become among the unjust or among the oppressors. Fa, therefore, waswasa lahuma, Satan whispered to them, a shaitan, sorry. So wawaswasa lahuma, shaitan would mean that whispered to them Satan. So Satan lured them, or he whispered to them, lay, so that yubdiya would mean so that become evident, lahuma, to them, ma, that, vorea, what has been hidden, anhuma, from both of them, min, from, sawatihima, their private parts. So Satan whispered to them so that what had been hidden from their private parts become liyubdiya lahuma, evident to them. Wa, and qala, God said, ma nahakuma, what stopped you, rabbukuma, and waqala, sorry, this would be not God, this would be Satan, and that he would say, ma nahakuma rabbukuma, ma nahakuma, that what has stopped your Lord from this tree. I mean, in fact, this ma is here in negation, and we would translate it as not. Not has stopped you, your Lord, from hazihi shajara, from this tree, illa, except, that, takuna, you become malakain, angels. So, waqala ma nahakuma would be that Satan said that only that thing has stopped your Lord from not you tasting this tree is illa an takuna, so that you become malakain. You become, so malak is of course angels and malakain is two, is the plural, so that you become, both of you become angels, which is the dual of malak. Aw takuna min al khalidin, or takuna, you become min, among khalidin, who live eternally, who become immortal. Wa, and qasamahuma would mean he swore to them repeatedly. Who? Satan. So Satan swore to them repeatedly, again and again. So this is something that he tried to do again and again. And remember, the lurings of Satan, they don't stop with one provocation. He continues to bombard us with his thoughts. So that is what is mentioned here, that he continued to repeatedly swear to them. And what did he say? Inni, I, lakuma, to both of you, lamin, from among, nasihin, well-wisher. So he repeatedly swore that I am a well-wisher of both of you. Fadallahuma bigharur. Fadallahuma would mean that in this way they were enticed bigharur, by him. Falamma, so by basically that would mean that he enticed both of them. But fadallahuma, he enticed bigharur, with his deception. Falamma, fa, therefore, lamma, when, zaqa, both of them tasted, ash-shajara, the tree, both of them tasted the tree, which other words means both of them tasted the fruit of the tree, badat, became evident, lahuma, to both of them, sawatuhuma, their private parts, wa, and tafiqa, they began, yakhsifani, covering, alayhima, upon them, min, from, waraqil jannah, leaves of the garden. So they began covering themselves with the leaves of the garden. Wa, and nadahuma, called to them, rabbuhuma, their Lord called to them. What did he say? Alam, did I not, anhakuma, stop you, an, from, tilkuma, both of you, ash-shajara, this tree. So did I not stop you from this tree? Wa, and akul lakuma, akul, I said lakuma, to both of you, and I said to both of you, inna, indeed, ash-shaitan, Satan, lakuma, for both of you, aduv, enemy, mubin, evident. So didn't I tell you that Satan is the enemy of both of you, and he is a very evident enemy. Aduv mubin, evident, something who is very clear, something you just cannot miss. Qala, both of them said, Rabbana, our Lord, zalamna, anfusana. Zalamna, we oppressed our anfusana, our nafs. We oppressed ourselves. We were unjust to ourselves. Wa, and in, if, lam, not, taghfir lana, you forgive us, wa tarhamna, and show mercy to us, lanakunanna, we will become minal khasirin, amongst the losers. So, if you do not forgive us and have mercy on us, we will become amongst the losers. Qala, God said, ihbitu, spread out, ba'dukum liba'din uduv, in such a situation that some of you are someone's enemy. In other words, idiomatically it would mean that you are the enemies of one another. Ba'dukum ba'd, one another. Wa, and lakum, for you, fil ard, in the earth, mustaqarrun, mustaqar would mean an appointed time, wa, and mata'un, a place to live, ilahin, in fact it is the other way around. So mustaqar is a place to live and mata would be provision. So walakum fil ard would mean, and for you in the earth are provisions and an appointed time. So mustaqar is the place and appointed time, and mata is actually the provisions, ilahin, until appointed time, until a particular time. So mustaqar and mata can be used synonymously. So mustaqar would mean a place to live, and mata would mean the provisions of that place, ilahin, until an appointed time. Qala, he said, fiha. So qala basically is God. God said, fiha, in it, tahyawna, you will live. Wa, and fiha, in it, tamutun, you will die. Wa, and minha, from it, tukhrajun, you will be taken out. So basically, what is being said is that in the earth you shall live, and in the earth shall you die, and from the earth shall you be taken out. Ya Bani Adam, O children of Adam. Ya is O Bani, children, Adam, Adam. O children of Adam. Qad, indeed, anzalna, we revealed, alaykum, upon you, libasan, attire, yuwari, that hides, sawatikum, your private parts, warisha, and adornment. So we revealed the libas for you so that it can hide your private parts and so that it can become an adornment for you and a means of embellishment for you. Wa, and libasut taqwa, the attire of piety. Libas, attire, taqwa, piety, and the libas of piety and the attire of piety, zalika, it is khair, better. So the attire of piety is better than your outer attire. That is what is meant here. Zalika, this is min ayatillah, min from ayat, signs, Allah, God. This is from among the signs of God. La'allahum, so that they, yazzakkarun, receive reminder. So this is among the signs of God so that they receive reminder. Ya Bani Adam, O children of Adam. Remember, this is not not a general address. It's not being referred to all the children of Adam. As I said, the concomitant indications, they tell us that by using the words Bani Adam, children of Adam, the Quraysh are being addressed. La, not, yaftinannakum, should make you a means of trial. Shaitan, Satan. So Satan should not put you into trial. Kama, the way, akhraja, he expelled, abawaikum, both your parents, min, from, al-jannah, the garden. So children of Adam, Satan should not put you in trial the way he expelled both your parents from the garden. And what did he do? Yanzi'u anhuma, by actually revealing from them libasahuma, or taking off from them libasahuma, their attire. So he did this by making them take off their attire. Liyuriyahuma, so that they can see. Liyuriyahuma sawatihima, their private parts. So yuriyahuma would mean so that they will be revealed their private parts and they are able to see their private parts. So he could show you their private parts, in other words, liyuriyahuma, so that he could show them sawatihima, their private parts. Innahu, indeed he, yarakum, sees you, huwa, he, wa, and qabiluhu, his tribe. So he and his tribe sees you, min haisu, from, la, not, tarawnahum, you see him. In other words, he sees you from where you cannot see him. Inna, indeed we, ja'alna, made, ash-shayateen, the devils, awliya, friends, lillazina, of those, la, not, yu'minun, believe. So we made the devils the friends of those who do not believe. Awliya is the plural of wali, and wali means friend. So we have made these devils the friends of those who are disbelievers, who do not believe. Wa, and, iza, when, fa'alu, they commit, fahisha, a vulgar act, qalu, they say, wajadna, we found, alayha, upon it, aba'ana, our forefathers. So when they commit a vulgar act, what do they say? They say, wajadna alayha aba'una, we found our forefathers committing it. Wallahu, and God, amarana, ordered it, biha, to us. Amarana, ordered to us, biha, of it. So they would say that we found our forefathers committing it and God actually ordered us to do it. Qul, say, inna, indeed, Allah, God, la, not, ya'muru, orders, bil fahsha, vulgarity. Tell them, indeed, God does not order or direct people towards vulgarity. Or would you, taquluna, say, alallahi, Allah, upon Allah, God. Do you say upon God, ma, that, la, not, ta'lamun, you not know? So do you ascribe to God what you do not know? Qul, say, amara, ordered, Rabbi, my Lord, bil qist, of fairness. Say, my God ordered about fairness or to be just. Wa and aqimu to face wujuhakum to face your to your faces in the near kulli masjid, every mosque. Wa aqimu wujuhakum is like a single phrase which says that you straighten your faces. In other words, it means that you actually direct your faces in the kulli masjid towards every mosque. Wa wad'uhu, and you call upon him, call upon God. Mukhlisina by making sincere, lahu, towards him, ad-deen, your obedience. So you call him by being sincerely obedient to him. Kama, the way, bada'akum, you came, ta'udun. So bada'akum means that you will the way you came, ta'udun, you will return. Kama bada'akum means the way you came, ta'udun, the way you returned. In other words, idiomatically it would mean that you will return the way you came. You will return the way you came, which is of course alone. Fariqan, one group, huda, on guidance, wa, and fariqan haqqa alayhim al-zalala. Haqqa alayhim became incumbent upon it, al-zalala, deviance. So one group was rightly guided and one group upon it deviance became compulsory, or they were engulfed with deviance. Innahum, indeed they, ittakhazu, held, shayateen, the devils, awliya'a, their friends. So they made friends of Satan, of devils, min dunillah, besides God or except God, wa, and yahsabuna, they thought, annahum, that they, muhtadun, are rightly guided. So they thought that they are rightly guided. What they did was that they made these first of all, we have to understand that one of these groups were on the truth, they were guided, and on another group, the deviance was made incumbent. Innahum ittakhuzu shayateen, and what happened was that leaving aside God, min dunillah, they made friends with these devils. So leaving aside God, they made friends with these devils, and they thought, yahsabuna, they thought, annahum muhtadun, that they are rightly guided. So this makes us come to the end of this session or this passage, in fact, until verse 30. And now if you have further questions, or in case that is not the case, then any other general questions, you may raise them.
So I have a question, Dr. Saleem. So the word mata in verse 25, is that the provision that
Yes, provision.
Shias use as an excuse?
No, that's something else. That's muta. This is mata.
Okay.
That's a different word.
Okay. Asif Saab, please ask your question.
We need some clarity about the grammatical construction of two verses. One is verse 30. Here it says, Fariqan hada wa fariqan haqqa alayhimus zalala. So here, is it the case I think what I perceive is that like the way it is mentioned, wa fariqan haqqa alayhimus zalala. So is it the grammatical construction that fariqan alayhimullahu hada,
no, it's not like that. No. It is Allahu hada fariqa. The first is Allahu hada fariqa, which means that God guided one group. And fariqan Allahu haqqa alayhim zalala. In other words, Allahu haqqa alayhim, which is the fariq. The word fariq is what we call as maf'ul muqaddam. It has been expressed earlier. So basically the words are Allahu haqqa alayhim al-dhalala. But the word him has actually been preposed by bringing it out as az-zalala, as fariq. So remember, alayhim is just referring to the fariq which is mentioned already earlier. Otherwise it is Allahu haqqa alayhim al-dhalala.
Okay, and regarding verse 32, here it's mentioned كل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات والطيبات من الرزق قل هي للذين آمنوا في
So
الحياة
we have yet to go there. We've not reached that place.
Okay.
We have just finished. I mean, up till verse 30. That is something that we'll take up inshallah next week.
Thank you, Ijaz Saab. Naushad Shafqat Saab, please ask your question.
Yes, Dr. Saab, we say that Adam and Eve were lured by Satan and God had forbidden them. And then we also say that it was God's scheme that this should happen this way. If they were fulfilling God's scheme, then why would God admonish the Quraysh by telling them, oh, children of Adam, don't be misled the way your forefathers were misled.
Yes,
Just a little clarification on that.
Actually, you see, what we say is God's scheme is not that it is a scheme that He planned that this should happen like this. It became resultantly the scheme of God. You see, every sentence that we speak actually has to be spoken retroactively. That once it had happened, it became evident to us that this was God's scheme. See, this is my or our deduction that it was God's scheme. But until that had happened, we never knew. So you see, it's like speaking of the past by actually thinking that this is the lesson that God wanted us to learn. So it's not that God stated this in word that I would like to teach you this lesson. This has never happened. It is we human beings, when they studied this incident, they thought that, well, it seems like when this has happened, then the result of this, whatever the result is something that is going to admonish us or warn us that this is how things will happen. So God did not drive that to happen. It is God gave Satan, of course, and Adam and Eve the freedom of will to do whatever they wanted. But as a result, what happened was that it became evident that this is something that would have become a lesson for us if we pay heed to it. So again, it's something that we understand retroactively.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. And today's lecture is absolutely amazing, sir. Truly overwhelmed. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Saleem, just expanding on Naushad Saab's question. So, the idea is that Adam and Eve they made a choice, but God knew from before what they would do, and that's why we interpret it as a lesson. Because,
okay. Of course. You see, this is something that we've been already discussing, that God does not dictate you to do what He would like you to do, but He knows what you will do. So you see, there's a very subtle difference, and by not realizing this difference, a very huge debate in philosophy that relates to determinism and fatalism has taken place since time. The philosophers were expounding this, and it's still going on, whether we are determined or whether we have our own will.
Right. Rizwana, please ask your question.
Thank you so much, sir, for adding me. My question is that regarding that verse where it says "Kasa Mahoma," when he was in conversation repeatedly with the Adam and Hawa. So, which form he appeared? The Satan, in a form of human being or jinn or what? Like, I mean, because he was telling them again and again to do these things.
So it does seem that he must be in the form of a human being, because we know that jinn, the way they are in their own species, we cannot recognize them. The Quran has just said that they can see us, but we cannot see us. So it does seem that he changed his garb. He came in the form of some human being that Adam and Eve could have spotted, and they would have understood that there is someone who's speaking to them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I don't see any raised hands at this time. If you don't have any topic-related questions, I will be opening the floor for questions, off-topic questions. We just have a few minutes left, so if not, then I'll open the floor. Dr. Saleem, can I do that? We have 10 minutes.
Yes, please.
Amar, you had a question. Please go ahead, ask your question.
What's up? What's up? I had my mother's dua today. And as is the custom in Pakistan, that a lot of people are reciting different chapters of the Quran and also Surah Yasin, and then there is a dua. So I did not read anything because Hamdi Saab says that it does not do any good. It's pointless. That this is not the purpose of the Quran.
Correct.
So, and I understand this concept very, very well. What I want to know is that if I want to do something in whatever time is left to me to benefit my parents who have passed away, do I have to do something which they started or they wanted to start, they had the niyat for but could not? Like, for example, if my father just put some money into the box of a mosque every time he went to pray, does it mean that I can construct a mosque in his name and that will benefit him in the afterlife? Also, if my mother,
I mean, this could only been the case had he had this wish to construct a mosque and he was collecting the money for this purpose. And then if you continue with that intent, then that would have been something that would have benefited him. But other than that, there is a world of things that you can do, and that is everything that they have taught you as a person, which is an act of virtue. So every time you act upon their advice, which is a sound advice, which relates to some virtue, some act of piety, so every time you do that, they are going to be rewarded for that because they initiated this in you. So that is why the children are called the Sadqa Jariya of their own parents, because they have taught their children. So whatever you have learned of virtue from them, every time you do that virtuous act, they are going to be rewarded as well, because they are the teachers of that virtuous act and they taught you this. So all the things that you have learned from them, you just start practicing them. That is all that you need to do, because every time you do those things, you'll be rewarded and they'll be rewarded.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Dr. Shehzad Saleem, please ask your question.
Well, I'm extremely sorry because of the technicalities with my Zoom. I couldn't ask the question. So there are two questions. First is related to the conversation today. As you stated very rightly that in the Quran we got some clues that the jinns, they can take the human form. So how can we identify? In the today's context or the current context, that there are somebody who is very close to us, whom we believe and trust as a friend, and he may be a jinn. And the second question is, because I watched your programs, offline. This is my, I think, rarest, chances that I'm online. So the grammar got developed later on, the books or the structures that we know. So to what extent, so as let's say students, we feel comfortable that we can apply these later on structures to the Quranic text, which were revealed much earlier?
So your first question is that how do we know that someone that we're talking to is a jinn or a human being? Well, of course, people who you know, who are introduced to you, who are born from parents that you know, about them, you can be absolutely certain that he's someone that has been, that is a human being. Similarly, there could be other people whose parents you know. So someone whose parents are known, of course, would be someone that about whom you can reasonably say with certainty that yes, he's a human being. However, there could be some unrelated person you do not know maybe, and you cannot verify to a certain extent whether he has parents or not. If that is the case, then probably yes, this could be one way. But I can tell you out of experience also, out of the experience of so many people, that seldom do we come across such people, because you see, every time that you know people, and you try to know them closely, you will come to know that they have a father and a mother. It's only when somehow you are led to believe that, well, the whereabouts of that person are so wishy-washy, they're so ghostly in their details that somehow the identity is not being properly marked. It is only then that maybe you can have this inkling. And other than that, even if it is something of a reality, if it takes place, I don't think it has any bearing on us, because remember what the Quran has said, that whether they take the form of a human being or whether they are in their own form, the only thing that they can do is they can whisper evil suggestions to you. That is all. They cannot forcibly grab you and make you do something bad. Yes, what was the second question?
The second question was, the grammar, the Arabic grammar was developed later on.
So you see what has happened is that, when you analyze those sentences, the sentences were always consistent. They were always following those rules. The rules were discovered later. So it's not that we are retroactively applying the rules to something that existed previously. Language was spoken in the same way all the time, and it was spoken in the direct method. The way you are speaking Urdu or English, you don't know what which is what? When you don't analyze your sentence in a grammatical way, you do it naturally, isn't that? So everyone started to speak uniformly a language, and the Quran calls it a miracle in itself. And when people wanted to learn that language, so now came the difficulty that how can I teach that language, because I know that language naturally from my environment, but I need to teach that language to some other person whose first language is not that language. So now they had to be taught, and for this these rules had to be laid down. So only when one language traveled into a new area where it had to be taught to other people, or maybe when people conquered lands that were speaking a different language, this need arose, and hence grammar was compiled. Otherwise, as we see that we speak naturally a language in a society that we are born, we just pick up that language from our left and right, and that is how we do it. But when I need to teach them to a person who's coming from some other country, now I need to, make sense of what I'm speaking. And once I start analyzing what I'm speaking, I'll come to know that I'm doing certain things which are absolutely uniform. For example, when I'm using a certain word, the word is, when it's a past participle using in the past tense, then every time I'm mentioning something in the past, I'm using a past participle. Similarly, when I'm using a future tense, I will always imply a certain auxiliary verbs for that, and this happens naturally because I pick them up from my own environment. But when I need to make them understand to a person who's trying to learn that language, I will have to explain that, look here, this is the sentence, this is the object, this is the subject, this is the predicate, and this is how the clause comes into being, and these are the phrases, and they are juxtaposed between each other. So that is my way of instructing people who would like to learn that language. And that is how grammar actually, the need to compile the grammar came into being. Otherwise, people were just speaking that language, and there was no need for them to compile that language, because as you can see, they were living in a society, in a locality, and uniformly speaking that language.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have two chat questions. One is, does Khalidana mean immortal?
Khalidina is not. The word is Khalidin. Khalidin, yes, it means immortal.
Okay. Then I have another chat question. If my husband taught me something and I follow those, will that also be Sadqa Jariya for him?
Oh yes, absolutely. And vice versa too. If you teach something to your husband, you will also receive the reward. So better do it.
Right. Rizwana, please ask your question. I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes. So I have a question because I wasn't here at that time when you were teaching Surah Baqarah. So in the start of Surah Baqarah, Allah said, "O Muhammad," when He was giving teachings to Bani Israel. Not Bani Israel, Yahud. So he was reminding them, just remind them, we didn't make you the superior nation, and we all know He made Bani Israel as a superior nation. So when we read this Surah Baqarah later on in verse 143, it says Ummatan Wasatan. So he's addressing Muslim Bani Ismail, that we made you a middle nation or superior nation. So my question is that did he transfer that title from superior nation title from Bani Israel to Bani Ismail, or just to the certain group of Sahaba?
I do understand. It is neither the case. It is neither the case, because in the first case, the word "inni faddaltukum alal alamin," that we chose you from amongst other people and gave you superiority, does not mean that they were actually made more pious or superior. It actually refers to the responsibility that were given of delivering the truth to the rest of the nations of the world. So inni faddaltukum alal alamin means that we gave you superiority by giving you this responsibility of delivering my message to the rest of the people. So this superiority was not something per se, not something which was with them by birth. It's not that they were superior. It is that because of being the carriers of God's message, because they were given this responsibility that I am not going to talk to those people, I'm going to talk to you, and you deliver my message to them. So I have chosen you for this responsibility. This choice or this selection is something that was of a responsibility. And the same responsibility was transferred to the Bani Ismail as well. And the word Ummat-e-Wasat does not mean the best Ummah as has been normally translated. The word Wasat actually means something which is in the center. So The Sahaba are being addressed here, and we are being told that you are the Ummat-e-Wast. You lie between the Prophet and the rest of the people. It is your responsibility to take the message from the Prophet because you are in the middle and then deliver it to the other people of the world. So Ummat-e-Wast does not mean the best Ummah, it means the middle Ummah. Someone which is physically between the Prophet and the rest of the people.
So those are Sahabas. He was talking about those Sahabas.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Only those certain people.
Yes, because they were in the middle. Remember the Sahaba, because the Quran says, لِيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ شَهِيدًا عَلَيْكُمْ وَتَكُونُوا عَلَيْهِ شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. That the Prophet is going to bear witness to the religion of truth before you, O companions, وَتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ, and you are going to do the same before other people.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I just have one last chat question, a short question, and then I'll be ending the session. Is the squeezing of the grave mentioned in the Quran?
No, it's not.
Okay. With that, we'll be ending the session. Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for an absolutely brilliant session today, and thank you everybody for joining. We'll inshallah be convening again next Saturday. Khuda Hafiz.